r/AskReddit, nsfw, to police officers, how are you feeling seeing how the situation was handled in Texas? This department has now created a situation where parents will show up to a future incident armed and not likely to take direction from officers on the scene. I'm a former police officer. I'm sickened by it. Especially since this is exactly the opposite response to an active shooter scenario than what the training dictates. In Europe at least, when you arrive at the scene of a suspected active shooter, you are taught to ignore the usual SOP in case of, for instance, a hostage situation or barricaded suspect. In those cases, you set up a perimeters and call in the SWAT team, who are equipped and trained to deal with that stuff. But in an active shooter scenario, you grab whatever gear you have in the trunk, and you go in, making as much noise as you can along the way. You shout "Stop! Police!" at the top of your lungs and you push as fast as possible to the source of the shots. You don't stop to render aid to the wounded people you meet along the way, stepping over screaming victims if you have to. The reason for this approach is 1, to intervene and stop the killing as fast as possible, but also 2, that most active shooters turn the gun on themselves when they know law enforcement is closing in. You keep moving, shouting and shooting, anything to stop the situation either by neutralizing the gunman yourself, or better yet, have him end it himself. It's a risky and horrible part of the job, one that I was happy to never have had to experience in reality. But if you roll up to a situation like that and you're too scared to do what you're paid and entrusted to do, then hand in your badge and go flip fucking burgers. Disgusted. My department had an all-cops run-in strategy ready to go. We even had an airport stairs on a pickup truck to drive to the side of the school if it was a hostage situation on the second floor. We coordinated with firefighters to have multiple cops on the platform on top of the ladder on the fire trucks, and the fire trucks would drive us up to the sides of the school and the cops would make entry through the windows. We practiced breaking down the doors, and also practiced breaking through the drywall and studs if the door was barricaded. We were told any cop who didn't go into a school shooting situation unless told by the chief otherwise would be fired. We were also told that if we kneeled on any suspect we would be fired, and the chief would recommend to the DID to charge us, and would give the evidence themselves. This was also well before BLM. When I see shitty cops clowning around I am pissed. That's why cops all over have bad names. It's because of clowns like these. I was a police officer back in the early 00s for a little over 7 years, and my dad is a retired, lifelong military and civilian police officer. We were talking about this situation earlier today and we both agreed that rushing into that situation may have been our last actions as living humans, but we'd have done it. My dad said better to die trying than to live being branded a coward and thinking what if. That whole protect part of protect and serve is an absolute in a situation where 7 and 8-year-old kids are being shot and them hanging around outside is unforgivable. I firmly believe that every officer that busied themselves tossing parents should, at a minimum, be fired and nationally blacklisted from ever being in law enforcement for life. Same for their chief. Edit 1. I used the whole protect and serve motto as an example of what they should be doing. Edit 2. I know there's not a blacklist for bad cops, but I wish there was. Pretty fucking angry. I am retired now, but taught active shooter response for over 10 years. Uvalde ISD chief should resign and turn in his credentials and get a job digging ditches. Thank goodness Bortak took the initiative, even if they waited and listened to Arando for 30 minutes. Ashamed of this agency and their so-called chief. If the shooter is isolated, you wait because time is on your side to negotiate. If they are actively shooting people, action must be taken. Just because the SCOTA says there's no duty to intervene, I think most LE agencies' policy and, obviously, public opinion beg to differ. In Britain, there was an attacker with a machete on London Bridge and our unarmed police officers ran towards him with only pepper spray and batons, literally hitty sticks. In fact, one was an off-duty transport police officer with no gear at all. I can't fathom the slowness of the response in Texas. Actual law enforcement here. It's disgusting, and I'm embarrassed. Training aside, and hearing about what you should do by keyboard commandos. In this case, you're absolutely right. I've been present at active shooter situations, like the real ones. It's not a time to wait for orders or a scene commander, comma. It's a time where you tell whoever is on the other end of the radio hold the channel for emergencies. I only want to know when someone else is coming inside and from where. And you know what, it fucking sucks. My back hurt for 3 weeks afterwards, pushing through barricaded doors and feeling like I was walking into an ambush. It wasn't fun, but it's not supposed to be. It's your fucking job. From what I'm reading/seeing, it sounds like just general cowardice and lack of training. The only people who did the right thing were the SHE and Border Patrol agents who just heard it coming out and went in even though it wasn't their responsibility. Something that stuck with me throughout my tenure in the Army. When the time comes for you to rise up and save the day, you're not going to be a hero, you're going to default to your lowest level of training. Shit, small town departments are terrifying, and generally employ bottom-of-the-barrel people, in my limited, and probably pretentious, opinion. YMMV. Retired Leo, the words disbelief and disgusted hardly scratch the surface. Charge all of them with negligent homicide/involuntary manslaughter. To add to the points the others are making, imagine the effect on the children's parents. They already have the horror of their child being killed, knowing that their last moments were filled with terror and pain, but that's now compounded by the thought that their child could have been saved, if it were not for the cowardice of the people they trusted to protect them. These poor souls are now broken. Military police here, I am angry beyond words at the tragedy that has taken place. MP training is direct to threat, and even without hearing gunshots we are required to breach the building and begin securing it, so if people are shot inside we can create a clear corridor for casualties to be collected and treated. These cowardly pieces of shit should turn in their badges and be held accountable for their inaction. Seething. I was already pretty pissed when I found out about it, but finding out the cops went in to save their kids and then proceeded to let the shooter run around for an hour because they quote were scared they'd get shot has ticked me the fuck off. I hope every single of them is fired, but knowing Texas they won't get their just desserts. Edit, thanks for the upvotes but I don't deserve them lol. I'm not a police officer, I'm just a dumbass who didn't see the part where Op was asking for police officers' opinions on this situation. I literally never comment on anything but felt like I should hear. I've only been on the job for a year and change in the largest department in America, and while we're definitely not perfect, I've been to a few shootings personally, and even with shots ringing out within visual range I've never seen any one of my co-workers run away or just wait for ESU cause they could get shot, and I know I've never ran away. While I can understand being afraid, I can't understand not doing your job. We're first responders and as such it's our job to go in there and get it done. Backup be damned. I hate Monday night quarterbacking, but I've risked my life on this job for way less so when other officers wait idle while kids get gunned down. It makes me mad. Disgusted. Angry. I was a cop from 2012-2019 and did multiple active shooter training at schools. Responded to a mass shooting at a block party and we ran in. We knew the risk when we signed up for the job. This was a nightmare scenario that they fucked up so badly. My city had a mass shooting where 10 people died 3 years ago. It took 6 responding officers 32 seconds to kill the active shooter. My co-worker is a relative of one of the officers who responded that night. She told us that he thinks these cops deserve to burn in hell for abandoning those children. So, my uncle is a policeman, and he said that the second they heard a shoot from the inside they were obligated to go in. Edit, so, obligation doesn't instantly mean they were by law required to do so. More of a moral obligation. Sorry for that confusion. It's like Parkland, Florida all over again. Someone with a badge and gun heard shots and did absolutely nothing. Cowards. I'm Australian and have friends in the various state forces, some of them in tactical units. They couldn't believe how any of this was handled. Nor do they believe any of those officers would ever survive the intake process for SOG, let alone even making it through the 12-month academy training program to start with. US policing in general suffers from fragmentation in funding, training, and discipline. There doesn't need to be 8 layers of policing and 50 different county departments all doing the same role but without a shared vision. There is a lot of talk about defunding the police. I say bullshit. It should be about amalgamation of police. State police bodies with a single training program, single operating standards, single funding, etc. As an active police officer of 22 years, I would have died trying to prevent even one additional child from being harmed. I could not live with myself knowing that I stood outside while children were dying inside. Words cannot describe my disgust for what has happened there. My heart aches for both the deceased and their loved ones. I hope they fire everyone who did nothing and the judge tosses any criminal charges against parents. Just typing this and saying it out loud has gotten me all fired up again. I'm really upset. I'm so heartbroken for the families. My agency trains us to take immediate action, TP, save lives and stop the threat. Our training and gear reflect that. There is no time for tactical teams. Absolutely zero chance. I give less than everything. Where? Is the body cam footage. As a motorway police inspector, I got 2 bullets in my left leg while making a bus hijack go unsuccessful. I was succeeded and remember, no matter if a bullet shattered my heart. At that time, what matters was the countless lives of innocent people. Sorry for my basic English. What they teach us is that you have to enter, even if that means by yourself. You go in and eliminate the threat. If you've got someone else there with you, cool, but you may have to go in on your own. Why are people who are not cops responding? Are you the same people who respond to Amazon product questions with "I don't know"? I feel appalled and embarrassed for the Uvalde police's response or lack thereof. What bunch of pathetic human scum would willingly neglect their oath and duty to serve and to protect equals Uvalde police? Imagine if nurses and doctors refused to attend to patients with COVID for fear of contracting the disease. I'm glad our hospital teams are braver than Uvalde's police. Now, waiting for a bullet is deadlier than COVID rebuttal. But you get the point. Not a cop, but I have a ton of active shooter training from the military. There is no training I've had that says wait for backup and make a plan in the event of an active shooter. You grab your long gun and move towards the shots and screams. Locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. If you aren't okay with this arrangement, get a new career. Really, a cop? Those guys, or at least their commanders, are cowards. To me, being a cop is a service position. I'm willing to die for anyone at any time in my city. Don't get any wrong, I don't want to die, but I sure as fuck ain't waiting outside during an active shooting. Cop here from New Jersey. Simply put, these cops can go fuck themselves. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the majority of the top comments here are from retired police officers and officers from other countries. I wish they were an accurate representation of the current state of the police force, but they're not. If you want to go on a deep dive into how current US police officers feel about it, check out r/protect-and-serve. There is one topic on their main page regarding this situation at the time of me posting this. The topic has been locked. And the reason it has been locked is because they claim people aren't being positive and supportive enough, and instead, hundreds of social media groupthinkers have fallen for dozens on online fantasies, precious few of which contain even a kernel of truth. The mod closes out the thread by saying, "Remember, When you're out in the world, these people referring to the ones spreading lies are there too. Shun them. For everything. So yeah. That pretty much says they'd rather stick their heads in the sand and pretend they're saviors rather than accept an ounce of accountability. It's honestly appalling. Current police officer. Waiting outside while an active shooter goes against what we're trained to do here. The problem comes when you have these small police departments or sheriff's offices that have few officers and barely do any training. I just know that regardless of training or not, if you're not willing to go into an active shooter situation and end the threat, then you need to turn in your badge. If it's true that these officers waited while they heard the shooting, then they actually deserve to be prosecuted and not allowed to work law enforcement anywhere in this country. For reference, here we are trained to go in to stop an active shooter as a single responding officer or as a two-man team. You don't sit around and wait for backup. I don't know if most other agencies do the same. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed this video and subscribe to never miss an upload.